They drove themselves to town. He got some smokes. They picked up cokes and walked in the park. A shady trail, stroll along. He's singing this new song. She wants it hot. She wants to stop and make their way home. Time is gone. Time remains. Nothing ever stays the same. Sweet summer child, you will see just how fleeting things can be when winter comes along. They woke up, he felt down. They drove themselves to town. He stopped for smokes. They got some cokes and walked in the park. It's a hard song to sing. It's a hard song to sing. Hello, my name's host Eric. I'm the host of Talking with Famous People. And I've begun live streaming because I want you and everyone in the world to know what it's like to be on Earth's Live-est stream. Hello, Daniel. No, it's not Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Hello. Nice to meet you too. JC Cush. I hear you're an important fellow with many important things in general. Here's a link. With information that explains how to book a typing session. Hi, Johnny Katz. Here's a link with info on how to book a typing session. It sounds like maybe this guy wants me to type him for free. No, that's not going to happen. Where's the link? Give me a second. I'll be with you guys in a second. I should have done this before I but I didn't, and you know. That's also not going to do any good. We're going to upload defaults. Stop. There. Copy. Paste and go. Does it work? Yes. Okay. Now email that. Okay. Now we can really begin living our lives together for the first time. And I think we're both going to understand that this time we spend together is the most important time of our lives. You love old people? Well, good for you. I'm fond of cool people, regardless of their age. Ass or titties? Well, I guess if I were to answer the question as straightforwardly as possible, I would say I'm more of a boob guy. But don't we all enjoy both? Yeah, well, depending on your age, I may be seen, you might see me as old, you might see me as middle aged. Depending on how old you are, you might even see me as young. I am actually a newborn baby. I'm the youngest person on the internet. Is TI subjective, objective, or is that the wrong way to note distinctive? No, for TI, that is the correct distinction to make, and TI is objective, which is to say it attempts to validate things in ways um, that are public, that others can check your work and they can validate it with the same metric and get the same results, etc. I am not your dad. No, I do have a child, but she is a girl, a daughter, and she's 27 years old. So while I have an offspring, I guess she's no longer a child. The only two functions that are truly, in the most meaningful sense of the word, objective or subjective are TI and FI is subjective and TI is objective. And when I use the terms in those instances, what I mean specifically is TI uses a disinterested calculus, claims to, well, TE is not either objective or subjective, really, because TE is not a determination approach. You can talk about people being objective and subjective, in which case you're talking about them paying attention. Hello. Hey, how are you? Good. How are you? Good. My wife needs more makeup. Exploring the fjords of Norway. Is that what it said? Yeah. Well, why not? Thank you, sir. Okay, we got some mail. So, there you go. Mail galore. Today's Rachel's birthday. Happy birthday to Rachel. And she wants to party. So, the thing is, whenever you have anybody tell you anything about objective or subjective, your first thing you should do is check to see if they mean something specific with the word. You can refer to people as being objective or subjective, or you can refer to data as being objective or subjective. They call it TI subjective because a mental framework is created by your personal perception. Okay, but the thing is, all ways of paying attention are of the self or of the subject, right? So, and there's no reason to think that a mental framework is more of the subject than, say, physical experiences. There's no reason to think that TI is more of the subject than NI, NE, any of the functions. The thing is, what TI does is it evaluates things on universals. So it's saying, look, if Tommy wants to go to the game, that's fine. Take Tommy, but I don't want to go with you guys then because I don't like Tommy. But if you bring Mary, I'll definitely go with you. Now, if he brings Tommy and you say, where's my ticket? Then he's going to say, you said that you didn't want to go if I went with Tom. That's what I mean by objective, right? Like, my words once spoken are things you can reference. You can hold me accountable to what my words mean and say, just like I can hold you accountable to what your words mean and say. And if we're parsing the correctness to say an explanation, we can all reference the words and arguments that people are making. And we can, I can point out, say, for example, if somebody made a typo and the word here was supposed to mean thought, we're supposed to say thought, but they wrote though. I can point to that and say, it seems to me that's a typo. It should say thought, not though. And you can look at the same thing and say, I agree. Contextually, it makes sense if it says thought. It doesn't make sense if it says though. And it's easy to understand how one might leave a T off the end of something. In fact, this example is taken from an anime I was watching this morning where they had though instead of thought. So the thing is, when we evaluate something, some language in an objective way, we're referencing objective data, like someone's words outside of us, and the points we're making are points that are either implicit to the thing itself, like I said there with the typo, or points about universals about language. Like, you said I could have the candy and the pig, not the candy or the pig. So why can I only take one now? Because and means something specific. Remember, logic's about statement connectives. And, or, not, if, then, if and only if. And validity is independent of even words. So I could say, if you go to the game with Tom, I don't want to go. But if you go with Mary, I do want to go. I could also say, if P and Q, then not E. And if P and R, then E. And that's saying the same thing, except I've just replaced all the words with symbols. The point is, the reason we know TI is objective is because it's dealing with objective data, and you can check the validity of something without even having any specific words, not even language specific. TI is not a focus on the subject. So it is not the case that when I'm TIing what you said right there, that I'm focusing on me. I'm explaining how what you said there, what you said Jung said, that TI is a focus on the subject in some way, is absolutely not true. The focus of TI right now is the objective analysis of that text. And that's how TI always works. It's dealing with things outside of oneself, although it can deal with it internally. So I can think things through before I say them out loud, right? But I'm thinking things through in the same way that I'm saying things out loud, which is just as if I say something out loud that's wrong and it has an implicit contradiction in it, it's going to get busted by somebody else and hopefully by me before I say it. That same approach applies in my head. So the words I'm saying in my head might just be in my head, but they're still being treated as though they're objects of analysis for everybody to look at. Now, in this case, my responding to Fly Guy's chat there was a good example of how TI does not deal with the subject. It does not pay attention to the subject. It instead pays attention to something outside of the subject, namely words, arguments, the logic of things. When you're talking about universal logics, what TE does is it concerns itself with the logic of something specific that has its own logic. So language has a universal logic to it. And is distinct from or is distinct from not in terms of very concrete and mathematically definable ways. TI doesn't seem to have a hard limit for when it's the means of perception for any concept. Well, I mean, first of all, it's not a means of perception, it's a way to determine a status, okay? And it is the case that somebody who's a TI user like me, especially a TI tool, is going to try to determine statuses for things with TI all the time, even if it's more appropriate to determine another kind of status with FI. So, um, if Rachel says something like, if we were in high school, would you invite me to the prom? I'm going to default to saying, uh, if you were in high school, I'd be 28 years old. That's not a good place to use TI to correct things, to check to see that these words outside of both of us are consistent with reality and or other things being said. That's not a good place to use TI to determine a status of something. I shouldn't have evaluated that statement for uh, factual, whether or not it was counterfactual, right? Well, instead, I should have just said, "Of course I would, darling." Because if I had said that, I would have been using either FE or FI to uh, to guide my words. So it is the case that there are only two possible ways to determine things, and that one is going to default to one of them and not to the other. And it's also the case that each of them is appropriate for certain kinds of things. As far as TE and FE go, those are not determination functions. They're not used to determine statuses. TE is used to figure out how to get from point A to point B. And FE often plays the same role. It just enlists the help of others, or, you know, it uses human resources rather than trying to figure things out itself. I think Jung would call it a subjective, because he would call the structure of a sentence an objective mental construct, an abstract mental construct. You must explore metaphysicality. But why is metaphysicality more subjective than physicality? If anything, you would seemingly make the opposite argument, right? That that physicalities require something that's uniquely me, my body, whereas mental constructs can be expressed to other people, and if you define your terms carefully, both people can mean the same things when they say the same words and use those definitions to make the same distinctions. So it's absolutely not the case that things that are mental are somehow more subjective than things that are physical. It just isn't the case, you know? But most important, he defines object as a physical object in the world and subject as a person's mental experience. Okay, well then he's just saying introverted functions are subjective and extroverted functions are objective. But that's also not true, because the problem here is Jung doesn't mean anything specific when he says subjective and objective. Like we can have many different objects to our attention. I can pay attention to my body. That's an object. I can pay attention to these words. These are objects of analysis. I can, like, for example, if I can have a sentence that says, Joe hated the idea of justice. Now we've got justice being the direct object of something, right? You could position justice in a sentence as the subject, like justice demands meow, but it's not really a subject at all. And so the idea that only physical objects can be objects, and that our attention is objective when it pays attention to physical objects only, is not using objective in a way that means anything, right? Because when I talk about what's objective and what's subjective, I start with, here are the possible ways that people use objective and subjective to mean something specific. They can refer to an interested or disinterested calculus, or they can be talking about data. If they're talking about data, they were talking about stuff that's outside of the self, okay? And if you were saying paying attention to data that's outside of oneself is objective, well, then TI is objective. If you're saying that that because you're paying attention, because it's you paying attention, that therefore it's subjective, or because you're thinking about something rather than, say, hitting it, that makes it subjective. That's a completely arbitrary distinction that divorces the use of the word from any conceivable meaning. So Jung did not know what he meant, right? He got confused by thinking that the epistemics, your TI, SI, NI, FI, that those were subjective because that's how you know or determine things. But that's not true, right? That's just absolutely not true. TI is like the truth doesn't matter if I am here or not. Like the truth doesn't care if I'm here. FI people are like, he's just speaking his truth. TI people are like, no, that's not a good way that's a misuse of the word truth. Truth means it's been established, sustained, and unrebutted that makes something true. And if our claims conflict with one another, then one of us might have the truth there, might be saying something that's true, and the other one is just wrong. It's not their truth, it's their wrongness. It's the opposite of their truth. But the most important thing to note, of course, Manny John is okay, so he doesn't define it in a meaningful way, right? Like you what you said is if it involves mental constructs, it's subjective. But that would make having a stomach ache objective. That would make feeling sad objective. It would make punching somebody objective. It would make digging a hole outside objective. Those aren't meaningful ways to define the thing, right? If you're saying things that are divorced from the individual, outside of oneself, divorced intentionally, that those things are objective, well, those things aren't being paid attention to then. No, a stomach ache can only conceivably be called a subjective experience because it produces subjective data. So, like, if Jung just means by subjective that it involves thinking of some kind or abstraction of some kind, symbols of some kind, then, okay, you can say that TI is subjective because it involves thinking words and concepts and stuff. That's fine if that's what you mean by subjective. Note that nobody who reads it thinks that's what subjective means. When people say TI is subjective, that's not what they mean. They don't mean that TI has to do with abstractions, thinking, and symbols. Of course you can observe the subject. I can observe myself just fine. Why can't I observe the subject? The point is that the self, words, etc., are objects of analysis when you observe them through that frame of reference. If you are not trying to pay attention to something as an object of analysis, then it may not be functioning as such at that moment, right? So we can come up with clear examples where somebody is either objective or subjective about paying attention to themselves. Like my ex-wife Candace had an enviable, I guess, polar ability to be deluded about herself. Like she thought she was very pretty, and even though objectively she was not very attractive, she believed herself to be much more attractive than she was. When she looked in the mirror, she liked what she saw. She didn't compare herself against external beauty standards. So she was evaluating the subject herself. Perhaps she was evaluating it by looking at the mirror, which provided objective data. But she was knowing with SI, not with NI. So she knew that she was the same great, cute, wonderful person that she always was. That's what she knew. Now, you could say about knowing things that she was knowing subjectively, because in that regard, she was knowing based on familiarity rather than comparison against alternatives or something. But the thing to note, of course, is we can falsify what you're saying because we can point to clear examples where somebody pays attention to the subject, pays attention to an object, pays attention to the subject objectively, pays attention to an object subjectively, and then we're actually saying things, we mean things, and our words are doing stuff, right? I mean, individuals disagree for any number of reasons, but that has to do with people not being taught to use language rigorously and or not being intentionally designed to do so. So, for example, math is the same thing as verbal reasoning. In fact, conditional logic is taught in math classes, and like logic gates and stuff are taught in math classes. So we all agree, it seems like it would appear to be that most people would agree that math is objective. That if I say that the solution to this equation is 6, that it's either correct or incorrect. And that it's possible for me to be wrong about the math problem if I'm doing it subjectively. In other words, if I want it really badly to be 6 and I'm biased. But it's also possible for me to be wrong about the math problem because I just did the calculations badly. Regardless, even though it's dealing with abstractions, even though it's dealing with concepts and thinking stuff, and it's happening in the head of the person who's doing the problem, generally speaking, people don't go, well, that's subjective what's happening there. Because, after all, attention is going on inside of him. In every instance of paying attention, it's always going on inside of the subject, whether it's an extroverted function or an introverted function. So if you think that math is objective, then you also think that TI is objective. If you say, well, isn't that kind of not correct way to say things there? Then you're right. If you think that a person attending to a parsable matter via an objective frame is using TI, then you are correct. This is one of those things that's made me so mad so many times over so many years because, of course, the absolute best case scenario is that I get instant equivocation. Someone's read from you, it's subjective. They've not understood the term to mean as Jung defines it, which understandably, because that renders the term useless. You can't do anything with it. It doesn't convey any of the information that the connotations that normally connotes. But let's say you wanted to embrace that. Well, then coming in and saying TI is subjective is just coming in and saying TI involves thinking about stuff. That's all it's saying. Well, I mean, my point is that if Jung is saying that only physical objects can be objects, then what about the sentence Eric thinks about justice? Justice is the object of the preposition. So grammatically, it's an object. In terms of its relationship to me, it's the thing I'm verbing at, right? I could, if it said Eric yells the word justice, well then um, I guess I'm not really doing anything to justice. But if I think about justice, then it's clearly the direct object. And if it's not the object, then is it the subject? I'm the subject, right? I'm the one thinking about justice. So, what is justice then if it's not an object? Okay, justice may be, let's say justice is subjective. Let's just pretend that justice itself, what comprises justice, is subjective, okay? But if I'm thinking about something, there's a subject that's doing something to something, right? So if it is the case that Eric pays attention to Mia, that there's a subject involved there, that would be Eric. What is the thing I'm paying attention to? Because I'm asking what's subjective or objective, because that's where we're getting in trouble, right? People are not focused on what the thing actually means. So there's a subject that's paying attention to something. What's the object? Because you can't just be like John and Tim and Bob through what? So it's important to note here also that a reasonable person can ask a question: which cognitive functions involve a person paying attention objectively in the colloquial sense, meaning in a disinterested way, and which functions pay attention subjectively in the colloquial sense, which is in an interested way? And the answer to that question is definitely TI pays attention as a disinterested calculus, FI is an interested calculus. Sure, everybody might have their agendas, biases, interests, but when I present a case arguing in favor of my interests, I'm going to present a case that attempts to be validatable by everybody else too. That in fact, you should side with me because I'm correct. There's not everything can be parsed objectively by people, right? So if I show you a basic legal document, a contract that obligates somebody to pay $200 once I've completed these services, it doesn't matter who I show to. If they can do basic reading, basic reasoning, they're all going to agree who's obligated to do what under what conditions. And the reason is because that contract is objective data, and because there's a base level capacity of people to do basic TI, even if they're not TI types. That if it says, I agree that when you complete this work, I will pay you $200, and they both agree that the work's been completed, then there's no conceivable way that anybody, no matter how TI polar they're going to be, is going to be confused about whether or not the guy owes the other guy $200, or at least what the contract dictates should happen. They'll all agree what that means, what the outcome is. If they don't, even if you get an occasional person who doesn't, that's because they are being very biased against the truth, or are just incredibly TI polar / dumb or something. I don't know. The point is, it is the case that people do pay attention to documents like legal documents, and it is the case that they can be paid attention to objectively or subjectively. So, in the colloquial sense, right? So, if in fact I pay attention to a ball and a line of balls, and I'm paying attention to the ball that I most want from the line of balls, I'm paying attention to that object subjectively. If I see this line of balls and I note that that one ball is slightly smaller than the other ones, I'm paying attention to those objects objectively. In other words, I'm making notes about how they are different from each other. If I'm paying attention to it subjectively, I'm making notes about how they differ from each other in relation to me, which one I like best. So if we accept Jung's definition of subjective and objective as not including any of the stuff I'm saying, then he's rendered the terms useless, right? We can do this all day. I can show you 100 billion examples of somebody paying attention to physical objects and objects of analysis in subjective and objective ways, and indicate and demonstrate that in no way, shape, or form does the fact that somebody has some kind of abstraction regarding it make it determinate as to whether it's subjective or not. It's insane.
Oh my gosh, you're so cute, and I startled you. I'm sorry.
Okay. I need my glasses, or I make this bigger or something. Look.
Are you arguing?
Well, somebody brought up this idea that Jung says TI is subjective, and then the white guy's trying to tell me that, but you got to read Jung's definition of subjective, though. It just means blah 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 blah. Well, my point is that let's actually use the term in a way that we can actually still use it to mean things, rather than if what he says is just basically, I'm defining subjective as anything that involves abstraction. Why? What are you trying to do with the term? What is he trying to do with the term then, if he's going to define it like that? Water is not objective. Water is an object.
Oh my god!
Okay,
Water could be objective.
Fire is not even an object. Although if we're talking about it, it's an object of analysis.
Oh, it's so
objects can't be objective. They can be objective data, but, it's like the reason I prefer what I'm saying in large part is because when we use the words like I mean them, then you can use it to evaluate things. You can say, is NI objective? And the correct answer is, well, it's not a determination function, so it doesn't involve an interested or disinterested calculus, so it's neither objective nor subjective in that way. However, it knows about things, identities of things outside of oneself based on, qualities of the thing rather than its linkage to the self. So in that regard, it's an objective way of knowing compared against SI. What about TE and FE? Well, neither of those are objective or subjective, really. TE is particularist and FE is universalist. FE is a way of converting people's FI into things common among all humans. Pride, shame, inclusion, exclusion, anger, various stuff like that. Perceptive is subjective.
Is this too small for a calendar?
No, that's fine. Where are you going to put it?
In the kitchen.
That's fine. I think it's important to understand the context why Jung says object or subject. He has patience and he's trying to define the difference between the physical experience and mental experience. Okay, well, so I think what Jung's trying to do is say something like this. Eric, your anxiety and stuff is disproportionate to the actual stuff you're going through. You've actually got it really good, and these things that you find so stressful, compared against other people's legitimate stressors, mean that your reaction to those stresses is outsized, right? In other words, it's subjective because this is all in your head. It's not justified by the actual circumstances. Well, that's great. For things like emotions, that's not TI though. And it is true that people who are very high in their subjectivities, especially like SI Dom or something, will never see the forest of trees because they're always so fixated on their tree. And so, oh my God, I broke a nail. Seems like a huge big deal until your whole family gets slaughtered by militants. So sure, those kind of abstractions, it is the case that a person, the stories a person tells themselves and about their lives and about their feelings, those kinds of things are subjective in the sense that both they're made out of subjective data and the stories themselves are validated only against subjective criteria. TI is not like that. TI, the reason why we're talking about this rather than my experiences and or my feelings is because when I'm healthy, when I have good mental health, I'm not talking about subjective stuff. And I'm not talking about it subjectively. So because we know that it's possible for a person to make the subject the object of analysis, to talk about subjective data subjectively, to talk about subjective data objectively. Like I could about my foot being a little bit hurt. I could talk about it objectively, like, well, to be honest, it's possible that it's just never going to get better and this is going to plague me for the rest of my life. I could take a more subjective approach to it, talking about it and say, no, it's going to get better. I believe it's going to get better. I'm not even considering the possibility it's going to stay like this or whatever. It's actually not a big deal. I'm just using it as an example. So we can give examples of a person being subjective about all kinds of different things and being objective about all kinds of different things. We can draw distinctions between somebody objectively grading a verbal reasoning test, in other words, trying to mark the right answer is right and the wrong answer is wrong, versus somebody subjectively grading the same test, wanting Joe to get an A, so marking everything right. What's the difference? Well, the difference is in the former case, he's using TI to fairly parse the question and determine the correct answer, which is necessary conditionally based on the phrasing of the language, right? In the latter case, he's using some other metric. And so, how about you answer my question? I will when I get in there. I meant to make that bigger or get my glasses or something. Instead, I just walk in and out, in and out, in and out because I'm in the middle of trying to explain something. The most important thing of all is that if somebody comes in saying TI is subjective, having heard it from you, they do not mean anything other than TI is just your arbitrary opinion, and it's not. It's it. You can't claim to have a disinterested calculus, and or everyone's opinion is equal about stuff for which everyone's opinion is not equal, like math. Nobody means it, as Jung apparently did, to just refer to anything that involves a mental construct. Nobody means it like that. So Jung did nothing but damage, even if he defined it like that. He did no work by defining it like that. Because, in fact, we have mental constructs that deal with subjectivities, like my anxiety, my stories about my anxiety, what it links to, or whatever. And we have mental constructs that are not about subjective stuff, such as how how long will it take to get from here to town, provided this average speed and this distance. We have to use mental constructs to do that calculation. Nobody would say that the answer is subjective. In other words, that it's something that is equally true no matter what answer you give, because it doesn't validate on exclusivity grounds, right? Everyone would say, no, it does validate on exclusivity grounds. If if it's 10 miles to town and you're averaging 10 miles an hour, it's going to take you 1 hour to get there. If somebody else says 30 minutes, they're not just as right as you are. I don't think we'd be having a conversation about this now if it were not for Jung, frankly. I don't think it's right to blame him for the difficult work if people misinterpret the work You did? Well, I mean, it's like, well, if I say a bunch of stuff like you've got to have faith, you got to trust the process, you got to have faith. I know you haven't seen any evidence of results yet. Maybe you have good reason to think we won't get to those results, but you got to have faith. And then, but technically, at the top, I defined faith as um, loyalty and confidence. Now, years later, people say, oh, you got to have faith. And what they mean is you got to believe before you've got good reason to. But that's not what Jung meant. He meant this other thing. He may have defined it as such, but he didn't use it like that, right? Once he started using the term subjective, he was saying TI is subjective because um, TI people prefer their own conclusions about things to other people's conclusions. That is true that TI people prefer their own conclusions about things. They don't trust other people to do the conclusion making. And therefore they're more subjective. They're more all about what they think and not about what other people think. But the problem is, the reason they trust themselves to parse things out is because they have the capacity to do so. And in fact, they would trust another person to parse it out also if could trust them to parse it objectively. And so, like, in if you're going to say that because TI people trust themselves most to determine the status of something and that makes them subjective, well, then in any instance where, say, a brain surgeon trusts himself to do the surgery but doesn't trust Joe, the barista, to do it, then the surgeon's being subjective. And that's not the case. In other words, it's objectively the case that I'm better at being objective and determining things objectively than anybody I ever meet. Now, it's not the case for all TI users, obviously, but for all TI 1-2 people, they are objectively better at determining what's objectively so than most everybody they meet. They can trust themselves to figure out what the legal document says. They don't need to go on heuristics. So I think what happened with Jung is he noted that TI users were reliant on their own parsing to make determinations rather than looking into objective data, other people's opinions about it. But what he missed was that they do look at objective stuff and they negate it on universal grounds, and they don't trust others to do that job as well as they do it themselves. Dre Sean says, I'm pretty sure I'm a TI user, and I agree with what Eric is saying. I mean, there are many kinds of things we can definitively attribute to TI, such as verbal reasoning, um, exclusivity parsings, genealogy questions, stuff like that. It's pretty odd to say that those things are subjective, right? It's pretty odd to say that uh, so doing a proof for a conditional logic problem is subjective. It's pretty hard to say that uh, checking to see if what you wrote on your resume matches your background information on your bio online. Few people would say that's subjective. Sure, it might be my subjective interest to do that, but few people would call that actual testing of something subjective. Like I said, we have plenty of examples of how a person could grade something subjectively, in other words, unfairly, by not actually checking against consistency with the correct answer, or how they could grade it fairly, objectively, by checking against consistency against the correct answer. So that thing of doing the checking for consistency and trying to make sure that it's above reproach from other people's perspectives as objective data, that is TI. If you want to call all that subjective because of some weird definition of subjective that doesn't let you do any meaningful intellectual work, then the only thing to say about you is you are wrong. I don't agree with the objective subjective part though. I specifically agree with the fact that we trust someone else if we think they did as much rigorous evaluations. The thing to remember here is nobody should disagree with what I'm saying at all, because what I'm saying is it is possible to use a disinterested calculus. We expect that of referees, judges, etc., right? That they don't have an interest, they don't have a horse in the race. In fact, we require judges to recuse themselves if they do have an interest in the case or own stock or whatever, because we require them to use a disinterested calculus and we want them to avoid even the appearance of impropriety, right? So it is the case that people calculate things against their interests or against a disinterested approach, right? Or the disinterested approach. Nobody can dispute that.
Can we take a picture together at some point for my family?
Sure. Just let's wait until after I get changed into something a little nicer than this.
Okay.
So we all have to agree that there are two kinds of calculation that people do. Either trying to be fair and correct, or trying to maximize what's in their interests, trying to know more about or determine what's in their interests. If I'm trying to pick between which boy do I want to go out with, Steve or Joe, I can't do a disinterested calculus there because the question is all about my interests. Which boy do I like more? And
even if it's the third party, Eric, and
yeah, well, in this instance, I'm pretending I'm a girl.
Oh.
I mean, Drayshawn, you don't need to even talk to me to change my mind. You just need to convey clearly what's wrong with what I'm saying. No, nobody's disputing anything that I'm saying about objective and subjective until we get to labeling a function as such. It is the fact that TI does things like determine the correct answer of logic thing, whether it's valid or invalid. That is the case that TI does that. It is the case that it's happening inside your head. Does that make it subjective? Okay, well, if anything happening inside your head is subjective, then me looking at a rock is subjective. Because after all, I mean, the thing is, are you going to respond to what I say, or are you going to try to make some other argument? Okay, if we already agree that TI is parsing these mental frameworks, then if that makes it subjective, then what makes looking at a rock objective? Doesn't the looking happen inside your eyes? Well, but give me the gist of your stance. Is your stance that TI is subjective? If that's your stance, then what's your definition of subjective? And also, would you agree that TI is objective in the sense of it being a disinterested calculus rather than an interested calculus? I mean, would you agree that people have disinterested calculi and interested calculi? Yes, we could talk. That's fine, Drayshawn. Didn't go well last night with somebody else, but maybe it'll go better with you. I'm happy to talk about it. And then remember is, with my definitions, everybody can use them to do things. We can use the definition of objective as applies to data to determine whether a given piece of data is objective or not. We can use objectives as applies to calculus to determine whether or not a given way of paying attention is objective or subjective, interested or disinterested. And we can note that some kinds of things are subject to that distinction and others are not. Like, it is possible, it makes sense to draw a distinction between two different kinds of determining of things, as interested and interested. It is not the case that the same thing is true of FE and TE, because in neither instance are you making a determination of something through deliberation. Thus, your calculus, quote unquote, isn't a calculation and cannot be interested or disinterested. Go take your dog for a walk, Vishon, and then come back and I'll get you on the laptop here and we'll talk about it. So let's say you're going to use some other definition besides the ones I'm providing. What do you plan to do with those definitions? How can I use it to draw a distinction between mia and mia? Look, everybody has subjective interests, but not everybody calculates every question against those interests. TE is thinking based on the rock, on the object. I mean, TE is a way of interfacing with something that has its own unique logic. So, for example, if I'm engaging with trying to fix a refrigerator, it won't do me any good to understand that refrigerators are supposed to work and that this reality is inconsistent with that, right? That's not going to do me any good at all. It's not going to do me any good to say, this is unjust. I just bought this refrigerator and they sold it without any warranty and now it's broken down. That won't do me any good at all. It's not going to solve the problem. So TE is a way of interfacing with a system that has its own logic, its own unique logic, in a way to attain one's own interested outcome goals, right? The reason why TE is with FI is because in order to use TE, you must first know what you want. You have to know where you're trying to get to. And then you've got to figure out along the way how to get there. Does that involve interfacing with the actual physicality of the thing? Yes, it does. But TE also applies if you're trying to figure out how to live stream together, like Ruben and I were the other day. We were trying to figure out how to live stream together. We were looking at the live stream like launch area in the desktop. We were not being able to find a button anywhere that said go stream together, go live together on the desktop app, but we can only do it on the phone. Now, the thing is, that is exactly the same thing as trying to fix a refrigerator. But you'll note that there's no physical object involved. Take that yam off your lip. All right, all those questions are good questions to ask, Scott. And they're questions you'd ask in a certain order of operations, and you test one thing after the other until you get a result that informs you about what you need to fix, etc. Well, a computer may be a physical object, but but the thing we're actually paying attention to, namely this screen with words on it, comprises only metaphysical objects. And I can put my finger under words that I'm reading out loud. Does that make those words a physical object? If so, then Jung's definition means nothing. And if not, then Jung's definition means nothing, because I've just demonstrated that, in fact, we TE'd something that comprised only metaphysical objects. Words are symbols. Right. Words are symbols, therefore objects of analysis. And accordingly, trying to say that everything that's symbolic is subjective is insane. Makes no sense, right? You have a contradiction built in here when we're talking about what's happening right now. I am dealing with objects outside of myself. They're just words. Words on a screen. That doesn't mean I'm dealing with subjective stuff. I'm not dealing with my memories of grandma. I'm dealing with words on a screen that I see. And the thing is, in every instance, every communication act except hearing someone speak out loud involves a static object. So if what Jung is saying is that TI is subjective because it deals with mental constructs, and mental constructs aren't objects, then he's also saying that words aren't objects. And so if I'm dealing with something outside of myself, an object that I can clearly point to, read out loud, etc., that it still is not an object. Okay, well, it's not the subject. It's somebody, not even my words. It might not even be words, it might just be an image, a picture of a rock. Anytime I look at a picture of a rock, it's subjective, but if I look at an actual rock, it's objective. It doesn't make any sense, right? So the thing is, what's being revealed here is what happens when you don't have a good definition for something. It breaks down. What you want a definition to do is to be very clear about what it's saying. So if I were to ask Jung, so is everything that is an abstraction or a symbol subjective, or any attention towards any abstractions and symbols subjective? The answer is yes or no.
Trouble, get off.
And if he's fucked either way. Manny John, you are delivering some wonderful Manny Johnisms today, and I appreciate it. There is no self until you force a self into you. Okay, well, let's say that abstractions, he wants to call it the subjective domain because, okay, fine. So, in other words, astrophysics is just as subjective as astrology. Calculus is just as subjective as the feeling of love in your heart. In fact, the feeling of love in your heart is not subjective because it's not an abstraction. So the feeling of love in your heart is objective, and astrophysics is subjective. Calculus is subjective. Okay, if Jung wants to define it that way, then Okay, but why are you making that distinction? What is he going to do with that distinction? Defining things in direct contradiction to how they're normally meant, such that like objectivity is just animal presentience, and subjectivity is everything that makes humans human. But wait, it's not a physical object outside of yourself. Why would he call FI subjective? FI is not dealing with abstractions. Like, I can have a feeling without having any idea of why I have it. I remember an instance one time when I walked out of a 7-Eleven. I'd walked in there stressing about something. And then when I was in there, I got distracted, forgot about it. I walked out, I felt that stress immediately again. I had no idea what I was stressing about even. So it's absolutely not the case that FI requires you to deal with that FI is a physical object. If it's not a physical object, well, you could say it's a physical experience, therefore it's not subjective, I guess, or maybe it is subjective. But what if you, what's the difference then between FI that you abstract about and FI you don't? Is one of them subjective, one of them objective? If not, then abstraction is not actually the criterion you can use to determine the distinction. The feeling only exists to you. I see. But my words don't only exist to me. So we have two different criteria by which something is determined to be subjective. Either it's a feeling that only exists to you, or it's words that exist to everybody. So what's the distinction exactly? It's not abstraction, and it's not general access. I mean, they do exist. I can show you them right here. See? The reason we know they exist not only is because I can show you them, they're right there, but I read them, and what I read out loud was the same thing you typed in. If I had read Dog-Faced Banana Patch Mambo Time, maybe you could have a point. Hey, words don't actually exist. We're all just blah, blah, blah. And if you're saying, well, words they don't function as distinct objects in space, well, they do when written down. They're just very flat objects. In other words, Fly Guy, we don't need to render them into physical objects for them to retain their objective quality. Because people have general consensus about what things mean, I don't need to write the word boat down for you to hear the word boat, know what it means, and remember that I said something about a boat. Regardless, there's absolutely no good reason to draw any distinction regarding cognition between that how you pay attention to words said out loud is a different way of cogniting than how you pay attention to words that are written down.
Wait.
Are you hugging me? Oh, you're coming outside. I took this out here because I don't want trouble peeing on it. I need to take it back next door. He doesn't need to bring that thing anymore because she never sits on it.
Mm-hmm. Now I don't know. Are they playing it lower than usual, or is it still as loud?
No, it's
as
lower.
been?
It's lower. No, a painting of a bridge is not a bridge, but a painting of a bridge is a painting. You know, a word that says dog is not itself a dog, but it is a word. and a word is a word. So what Jung would say is that looking at an actual bridge is objective in some sense, but looking at a painting of a bridge is subjective. Okay, that's not a distinction he's making about cognition at all, right? That's a distinction he's making for reasons unknown, for purposes unknown, between representations of things and things themselves. If in fact every time something's represented, that comprises subjectivity, well, why? Why? How and in what way am I being more subjective if I look at a painting of a bridge than if I look at the bridge itself? I'm looking at somebody else's maybe subjective interpretation of the bridge, but that has nothing to do with my cognition. So what should be abundantly clear here is two things. One, we can't use Jung's definition to do anything. And if we try, we run into contradictions immediately with what is obviously so. In contrast, when we use my definitions, we can mean specific things and explain exactly what we mean. That's true in real life too. I still interpret the lines and colors to mean something, whether I'm looking at a bridge in real life or painting a bridge. It's also the case I might approach some object in real life from a weird angle and it looked to me to be something other than what it is. Same with the painting. And in both instances, as I get a better look, I can see that I was wrong. There's in no way, shape, or form is it different looking at an actual object than a picture of that object attentionally, cognitively. It's not any different. If I see an actual pineapple, I might think of Hawaii. If I see a picture of a pineapple, I might think of Hawaii. Well, the thing is, the beautiful thing about TI and the reason it can be so correct is because it has the power of conditionality. If your justifications for conclusion X are meh, meh, and meh, then we can negate conclusion X. Not necessarily that it's wrong, but that we can't affirm it, because I've falsified all three of these justifications. You haven't responded to my falsifications, therefore my falsifications are still standing. Without those warrants, you can't justify your conclusion. Therefore, we negate. You can come back and try again with better arguments later if you want, but for now, we negate. It's conditional. So it might be the case that the premises are not wrong. But if they are, then we cannot necessarily know the conclusion. That's something that's universally true. It doesn't matter like what the specifics are. And here's the other thing. When we're talking about objectivity and subjectivity, there's an ancillary issue of universality. So we can understand another angle on objectivity with NI and SI. NI knows things according to the outside world. If Rachel wants to know about whether she's happy in her relationship, she'll look to an outside source to tell her, which is an example of somebody knowing objectively, even though a preferable modality in that instance would be to know subjectively, to reference her own experience and see if she's happy. In contrast, if I don't really think about like questions like, am I happy in my relationship or anything? But if I were to, the reason I don't think about it is because I have at all times access to all the experience I've already had. I've become very familiar with the relationship. I'm very comfortable. Assume it's going to go on no problem because I'm not evaluating it against externalities. I'm evaluating it against my experience.
Well, now I like use critical thinking, and I'm like, I don't know. Like I don't just go blindly by what astrology and stuff says. Sometimes I do.
Yeah, TI is not always right, okay? That's absolutely the case. But it's like if I'm a TI user and I'm making a claim and trying to substantiate it, implicit to that process is me saying if you if you can validate things and you validate this fairly, you'll agree with me. But I still might have made some mistakes. And you might say, well, I would have agreed with you, but this argument here is invalid. And in fact, TI people do not necessarily agree with each other, etc. But what they do, the same always, is they want to use words and want others to use words to mean specific things and not other things. So, like sometimes I'll ask somebody a question and I'll hear in response, where are you going with that? So that's TI running into FI. Where am I going with that? I'm trying to figure out exactly what you mean so I can eliminate these possibilities. Or so that I can show you that this doesn't make sense or whatever. They're saying, I'm trying to express myself and I don't want to be subjected to black and white thinking. Yeah, and introverted intuition is knowing objectively. That doesn't mean it's correct. Same with introverted sensing, knowing subjectively doesn't mean it's correct. Sometimes your memories are wrong. Sometimes your determinations are wrong. But that's why, and the thing is, the reason TI is objective in part is because of its universality. The things against which TI evaluates are things that are universal to language. So if I say, if P then Q and Q therefore P, it's invalid no matter what statements I put in for P and Q. And the other thing about using a TI approach towards language is TI is turn-based, which means its deliberation expects to be able to direct attention to an unchanging object of analysis and critique it as it is, and that nothing changed during that process. It is possible to be subjective, sure. Oh, for it to be subjective. I see. To be fair, I literally have only said you can't make a truth claim with no reasons and expect to be right. Well, you can't make a truth claim with no reasons and expect others to agree with you. I don't really care if you think what I think is true. I know it is. And TI, like a TIFE person like me, ENTP, ultimately I am trying to reach agreement. I'm trying to get other people to agree that what I'm saying makes sense. And I get frustrated when I can't get that agreement because what I'm saying is conditional. It's saying, like, okay, well, can we agree at least that if you have an apple and an orange, that you have some kind of fruit? Well, where are you going with that? I mean, the thing is, when I'm seeking agreement, what I mean by that is I'm looking to put things to bed in a way that we can then refer back to and use that now put to bed thing to do further work. Who's Sean? Well, and the thing is, I I do need to prove things to people and explain things to people. It's who I am, right? But I don't any longer expect people to agree with me or be convinced as a success criterion for the explanation. Um, I spent a lot of years as a debate coach where I would train my debaters how to the best arguments to make in every situation and for both sides of the topic. In those contexts, I got very accustomed to being able to just explain things, have everybody take notes, and uh, and nobody was attached to a position that was wrong because of the nature of what we were doing. We were doing a competitive sport. It's like in a sport, uh, nobody cares what's fundamentally a better play, you know, Hail Mary or a pull to the left. It's all about what you should run, when you should run it, and how you should run it. So, accordingly, I didn't get much pushback on things because they were kids. They wanted to win. They knew they were there to learn. They weren't they didn't come in thinking they knew best about this stuff. Although sometimes I get INTPs who insisted on doing things their own way, which was always conflicting with me on the grounds of there being NI countervalued. They wanted to run, like INTPs love to do this. Let me spike out every possible argument I can think of that they might run in advance. And then their case becomes messy. They've got trying to do too many different things. They can't do any of them well enough. They don't have uh, a core powerful engine to their app, or this is less relevant today, but you Eric Scott 5 in the chat. He claims to be a TI user and just typed someone INTP. I asked why is Sean an INTP, and he said, I see things other people can't see. You just can't understand. Ah, well, have you ever met an ENFP with good TI? No, they don't exist. It doesn't mean that they can't TE their way around, say, argumentation conditional triggering things. Like you can train one to, if they run this, then you read this card. But they're not going to do a good job of doing that stuff on their own. Casey Jones, hello. How are you? Yeah, ENFPs can have fantastic TE, sure. And you know, it's like I'm kind of jealous of our neighbor Kay. She's an ENFP because I had this really conflicted relationship with music. Hi, Casey Jones. Uh, I I get stuck in these places where I can't seem to do anything or move forward because the only thing worth doing from my perspective is something that makes something genius, absolutely like mind-blowingly genius. Otherwise, why am I wasting my time? And I can only evaluate music on NI grounds. TI isn't useful for evaluating music at all. And FE, it might inform my NI about it somewhat. But accordingly, my standard for what makes something worth doing musically for me is it has to be so good that it lands up there with the Beatles and Johnny and all the best artists in the world. Well, that's a really fucking high bar to meet, right? I don't know if I'm really capable of meeting that. Meanwhile, Kay next door, she's an ENFP. She writes lots of music, plays lots of music, and you can just see her just like feeling everything and enjoying it for itself for what it is, and understanding music very differently than I do. She knows whether something's a good song based on whether she's feeling it, and she knows that she wants to play music because she loves playing music. And you know, It's very simple, straightforward things that I can't help but be jealous about. So many of the most regarded artists from so many different fields, from writing to music to painting, are INFP for a reason. I mean, I don't doubt that there are plenty of INFP artists. Some of them make some really good stuff. I would say the challenge INTP and INFP both have in regards to making music is the countervalued NI. To do music right, it's got to be perfect, and that does include it needs to be non-derivative, but less is more, concision is better, weirdness for its own sake is bad. And INTPs and INFPs both can fall victim to those misconceptions musically. I'm just talking music. Go ahead.
What time are we going to dinner?
What time do you want to go?
On the earlier side, because I want to get a good seat.
I think it opens at 4:30.
Oh, really?
We could leave as soon as 4 o'clock.
That sounds great. Are you down with that?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. And then can we like live stream after?
Yeah, totally.
I haven't taken
Dime Store Adventures. You haven't taken it? I put it right there.
Where is it?
Right in front of your face.
Oh, thanks.
Last Friday night. I said I debated Filer last night, but it was actually 2 nights ago. Oh, my bad. That was 2 nights ago, Filer, not last night. Like the way people talk about them, you expect listening to them would cause you to orgasm and ascend at the same time, which simply isn't the case. The way people talk about who? Are the Beatles? No, I mean, the Beatles' quality is unrelated to how much people hype them up. People hype up garbage all the time. People fail to hype up great shit all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So the Beatles are, yeah, well, maybe John Lennon was a little evil.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fight you on that one. But it's also the case that the catalog of compositions the Beatles have is unmatched by any other artist in history. They've got an incredible amount of transcendent tracks and songs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good to evaluate things like that by, covering a song, playing it on the guitar and singing it. Then you get to really evaluate stuff fairly. Like, I'll try to cover this song that I think is good from this other band, and I'll cover this Beatles song. And then it's me playing and singing both of them. It's very easy to tell what actually kicks ass when you do it like that. You might be somewhat put off by some of the more old-fashioned production approaches by the Beatles. Are you going to do a Typology video again? Maybe. Probably. I'm not quite. I just haven't gotten started on it or anything. But
A Day in the Life is like the quintessential Beatles song.
You think so? It's certainly a quintessential Beatles song.
Yeah, well, cause like I feel like, the fact that it's John, like you could tell the John part from the Paul part.
Yeah, but you don't want to listen to that super old stuff, Filer. Like the Beatles' first couple albums, not things that Rachel and I really like listen to or consider Beatles canon. I don't think, in some sense.
No, I mean, I want to hold your hand because that's like the one that got them to be big in America. But like I don't. Besides that, really, I don't know. I like how Hard Day's Night has like some good songs.
I think I'd like Help better if they named it Help.
Help.
Oh yeah, Pink Floyd is overhyped, but again, the problem isn't that they're overhyped; it's that they aren't good. They've got a couple okay songs. We're going to Fredericks of Savory. Did you think I was going to say Hollywood?
I always do.
I wasn't. I was just going to say Fredericks of Savory because that's the name of the restaurant. Even though it always makes everybody, I'm sure, think of Frederick of Hollywood. They made a love song about a 16-year-old girl. Well, they were probably pretty young themselves when they made that. I think it was just kind of being, making a cynical, aiming cynically at the teenage market, probably.
Do what?
Writing a song about somebody who's 16 or 17 or whatever, and you're the Beatles.
She was just 17.
Right. That's probably more than being about somebody who's actually 17. It's more of aiming at the youth market as consumers, I suspect.
Smart.
Yeah, it's in Mariposa. I'd be curious to think what you think of the band Porcupine Tree. Well, I think they have a bad name. We can agree on that. Porcupine Tree.
I feel bad.
I mean, I can also tell you, just from looking at the picture, they have across the board a terrible aesthetic. Now we're going to listen to one of their songs, and I'll explain to you that probably it's terrible too. That is absolutely horrible. Just like a good example of a certain kind of terrible aesthetic decision making. Like, you can hear that drum beat and the like prog rocky bass line. I immediately knew, like, oh god, this is going to hurt. And then when he started singing, I knew it's as terrible as I expected, maybe even more terrible. Do I ever listen to Yoko Ono's albums? No. How about Rose Dust by Heroin Honey? Give it a listen. I didn't start with Lazarus. I started with the first one that came up. It was 7 minutes long and 7 minutes of fucking torture. Go ahead, sorry.
My mom said that she's gonna eat half of her potato in honor of me.
Oh, what a great, very respectful thing to do. Let's listen to this one and see.
So
it's pretty good. It's all right. Which is what the chorus sounds like. All right. So yeah, it's kind of like melodically it's kind of derivative, kind of doesn't really have its own identity anymore. But it's not bad. It's not bad like Porcupine Tree was. I mean, well, I mean, how could you possibly like that Psychic Guilt? It's musicians showing how musician-y they are, being pretentious and making 7-minute long songs. How could anybody like that?
My mom also said don't ruin your appetite before dinner. Like, why are you doing that on my birthday?
Because she's a T-Dom. If you don't have a problem, she's going to find something to frame this problem and solve it for you. I don't want to get over you by the magnetic fields. All right, well, let's give it a shot. This has potential, but I have to listen to a little bit more of it, I guess. Yeah, it is pretty good. I'm not gonna listen to the whole thing right now, but it seems pretty good. It's the sort of thing that I could see myself giving it a chance to for a little while on a playlist. I don't want to get over you. Sounds like I want to get over you. I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say rose dust was easier on the ears than Lazarus. Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, it's not even about being easy on the ears, right? Although that certainly matters, but it's about like, what is this thing that you're presenting here to me supposed to be? And that last one that you put, I don't want to get over you by the magnetic fields. It's at least trying to be, supposing to be something worth being. Whereas the the Porcupine Tree song, that song started off by trying to be something that nothing should ever try to be. But regardless, part of that reason it should never try to be that is not exactly sure what it's trying to be. It's like trying to be a vehicle for them to demonstrate their chops and their seriousness or something. Terrible, terrible. Like it'd be a perfect case study of a litany of artistic mistakes that everybody should avoid. Like, ask yourself this: check the label before you listen to something. What is this supposed to be? Oh, see, pretentious musicianship, prog garbage. Okay, no, I don't want to listen to this. You can usually just tell by what it's trying to be whether it's going to be any good. Because many things fail immediately before they even get out of the gate by trying to be something that nothing should try to be. And then sometimes the problem is it's not trying to be anything because it doesn't represent the vision of a single artist, nor the um, collaborative, mutually improving visions of distinct artists. It represents everybody deciding what they want to play on their instrument and art by committee. Art by committee is terrible. The only band you could conceivably even begin to think of that did anything like art by committee that was successful was the Beatles. And they set a bad example in that regard because if they made other people think they could do art by committee too, uh-uh. Okay, I'll check it out. Alesis by M.K. Gee. We will see if it's good or not. Give her a listen. Wow, that's bad. Woo, that is mind-bogglingly bad. I would say it's not quite as bad.
Everybody to be high like me.
It's not quite as bad as Porcupine Tree. Maybe. At least it's not 7 minutes long. But yeah, where to begin about what that person is doing wrong?
How would that even got like funded?
I'm sure it's self-funded. You know, it's like, okay, start with asking some simple questions of yourself, guy. Am I composing a song? And if so, what can I do to maximally convey, optimally express the truest form of that song as it's meant to be? He's like, no, I'm not writing a composition. I'm just like fucking around in my room at night. And I love the smell of my own fart so much that I recorded it and made this horrible music video.
Like it makes me believe like I could do it.
Right.
And
yeah.
we could do it. We could do it easily.
I mean, the thing is, I don't care what kind of music it is. You know, every genre could make a great track, but no. No. I'm sorry, no. You don't need to have. It's like if you want to play rockabilly, write some good rockabilly song, not that garbage, half-assed rockabilly derivative nonsense. And then you don't need to dress it up in industrial sounds in order to avoid the fact that your song is shitty. Just make a good song instead.
I think you're the good song instead.
Thanks, darling.
You're welcome.
Thought I had mentioned previously something like Pavement or Built to Spill. I like Pavement. Pavement's an example of a rather indulgent, kind of pretentious band that I like anyway. At
Me
least I like
too.
some of their stuff. And it just goes to show you it's not impossible to be a little bit more self-indulgent and have it work. Steely Dan's an example of a band that
Mm.
you could, if I had never heard them, it doesn't matter how well you describe them. If you describe them accurately, I would say for sure in advance they must suck incredible ass.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
But they don't, because that
Yeah.
INTP super genius managed to make it work
Mm-hmm.
despite his NI counter value. So it's possible to make what are objectively very ill-advised decisions for almost everybody and have it be the right decision for you. Your favorite Steely Dan song is Kid Charlemagne. I mean, that might be my favorite as well. I really like that track.
I do too.
I also like My Old School. Um,
Oh, my old school's a good one.
I like Dirty Work.
Dirty Work's another one.
Yeah, they've got actually quite a lot of good songs. Hey 19,
Yep.
Peg.
Do you wish I was 19?
No. He says in the song, we got nothing in common. We can't dance at all. Take me down and now when you slide on down. But some of my favorite Steely Dan songs are actually from Donald Fagen's The Night Fly, which is a solo album of his.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a huge fan of Ricky Don't Lose That Number, but that is a Steely Dan song. Um, I'm also not a huge fan of Deacon Blues. It's another one of their hits that I don't really like. Yeah, I know what Kid Charlemagne's about. My favorite part of the song, I bet it's everybody's favorite part of the song. Is there gas in the car? Yes, there's gas in the car. Also, like, a kind of obscure Steely Dan song I like is With a Gun. I like quite a bit of their stuff. Oh, there's a new Steely Dan song that's fantastic called Going Out of Business, I think it's called. All your low rent friends are dead. This life can be very strange. Is there gas in the car? Yes, there's gas in the car. Yeah. It's like, I can imagine if in a movie, it would be cool to have Kid Charlemagne be in one scene, like his background music or something, fade out. And then in a later scene, not that long afterwards, have one character say to the other, is there gas in the car? And the other character says, yes, there's gas in the car. That'd be fun. That'd be a fun reference for people. And of course, not include that part of the song when you're playing it in the movie. So it'd be a fun little Easter egg thing. My rent friends are dead. Life can be very strange. That's a really good. It's a really good choice for a favorite Steely Dan song. On the Night Fly with the Don't Think of solo album, I'm super fond of the title track. which is I've got plenty of Java and Chesterfield Kings, but I feel like crying. That's a good song. Maxine is one of the most beautiful, it may be the most beautiful song Donald Fagen ever wrote.
Oh my god, it would make me so sad when I listened to it when I was in New York. Oh my god, it's so sad. Because it was true, like I was feeling impatient.
Some say that we're restless. They say we're much too young. Tell us to stop before we've begun. Try to hang on, Maxine. Move up to the city and fill the place with friends. Drive to the coast and drive right back again. Someday we'll make love until then. Try to hang on, Maxine. Oh, Mexico City. It's like another world. Nice this year, they say. You'll be my senorita in jeans and pearls. But first, let's get off this highway. Off this highway. That's a great, like, it sounds like a jazz song from 1947 or something, but it was written, I guess, in the 80s. It's a brilliant track. That album's got a lot of good stuff on it. It's got International Geophysical Year. It's got New Frontier. It's got Walk Through the Raindrops. It's got a lot of stuff on it. It's a good album. An album I've listened to many, many times. And it's something that if you come across Donald Fagen's The Nightfly album, just kind of out of nowhere, somebody puts on, you'd be like, what is this? Like, do do do. Okay, what the fuck is this? But if you just let it play for a little while, it'd be like, wait a second, is this like the sneakiest genius shit I've ever heard? It's so sneaky genius. The whole album is. It's got this super clean, early digital music sound to it. Like everything's super crispy. I did cut my hair.
I think you're super crispy.
Thanks, darling.
You're welcome.
Well, that's because I fried myself, took myself out, added more flour, and then refried myself.
Can you put that thing on mute?
Mm-hmm. I'm looking clean. That's because I don't have any dirt on me. That's how I get to look this clean. Mountain goats. The mountain goats. A lot of emotion, not super technical, really rough vocals, but God, can they punch you in the gut? I'm not. I'm not like a nitpicker about everything having to be precise and perfect, provided it works. That pipe looks like the Squid Game doll if it was Jamaican. She's actually Native American, Negatron. She's not. She's not Jamaican. Named Firecrotch, she's the leader of the proud Firecrotch tribe of Indians. I think Tyler Perry should play Michelle Obama in a movie. No, probably that wouldn't be the best person to cast. Maybe you could cast Caitlin Clark's nemesis to play Michelle Obama. What's that girl's name? Asia something? You know what I'm talking about, Rachel?
The one who like shoots off.
The one from LSU with the super long eyelashes.
Yeah. Yeah, they were nemesis.
R.I.P. to the big black guy from the Green Mile. Apparently he's dead. Did not know that. I did not know. Is The Simpsons over or are they still making episodes? Inquiring Eric's want to know. I'll ask Rachel to ask her phone when she gets back.
That's fun.
I would like you to ask your phone if they're still making The Simpsons or if it's done.
Okay, I think they're still making it.
I don't know. Negatron says, yeah, The Simpsons is still going. I know they're on like season 36, right?
Season 36?
Yeah, season 36.
Wow.
I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos by this channel called The Real Gems. It's Jims. I mean, sort of. It's a cash cow. Like, they still get like 4 million views per episode, which is great and everything. But a lot of YouTube channels do better than that. You think imitation is suicide of the soul? Suicide of the flame of your individuality? No, I don't think it's that. Like, my friend Dave Porter, his relationship with music is one of playing it. And he plays a lot of covers, so and that helps him to get gigs because people like covers. And the whole point of the thing for him ultimately is to have a lot of experiences playing music.
Who's that?
Dave Porter.
Oh yeah.
He's not doing it wrong. He's not suiciding the soul because he he's loving music the way he loves it. Um, it would be suiciding the soul for me to do that because for me it's important that I generate original stuff like if I didn't write the composition or make the track or what have you, then why should I feel pleased by that? If I'm just going to be playing covers, we might as well just do karaoke. I'm not interested in being a good guitarist because that doesn't matter unless it's those skills are an ingredient in making something good, you know? So the Dodgers got Tucker. What do you think the MLB should do about the payroll discrepancy and can they avoid a 2027 lockout? I really don't know. I haven't looked into it enough. I don't know. enough about the respective talking points of the two sides or anything. Or as long as you're not copying someone's path, maybe. But you like people transcribing books aren't killing themselves spiritually. I agree. Eric, can I get you with an interesting saying? Maybe you can. I think if somebody is, like let's say you're in China and you're the guy behind fake KFC. They've got this restaurant in China that is basically exactly KFC, but it's got slightly different names and stuff. Well, the point is, they're not trying to make art, they're trying to make money. And they don't care if it's an original idea or not. They don't feel any ethical uh, consideration, like, well, this is unethical, or anything. They don't think about that. And they're just saying, well, if we follow the letter of the law so we can't get sued for trademark infringement, then this is the most surefire, already proved, tested way to make money. In that case, they're not sacrificing their soul either, though they are being kind of sleazy, but because they're not trying to be creative. If somebody is trying to express themselves, trying to be creative, but they only come up with stuff that's derivative of somebody else, then that's just sad. They're trying, but it's not. Sometimes you can't do it. We don't have a dog. If my aunt has wheels, she would be a bus. Is that like a version of if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas? If blah, 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 blah. Like the monkeys ripped off the Beatles. Yeah. I mean, they ripped off the Beatles more than, say, uh, Electric Light Orchestra, who has a song that sounds a lot like the Beatles, but the whole band isn't a ripoff of the Beatles, I guess. That Blue Sky song really sounds like a Lennon McCartney, mostly McCartney composition.
Mm-hmm.
You want to wish us a Merry Christmas? Well, it's too late for that, Putty Cat. Christmas is already past, and while it could have been merry had you wished us that in time, you didn't wish us that in time, and thus it was merryless.
You could wish me a Merry birthday.
Merry birthday.
Thanks.
I already said happy birthday to you, didn't I? Or no?
Yeah, you.
I think I did. Happy birthday, darling.
No, I'm.
You're 41 years old now. How does it feel? The big 4-1. You feel like you're finally a woman?
I don't know. 40 is like, yeah, today's my birthday.
You mentioned that you were menstruating. I'm assuming this is the first time you've had your period?
On my birthday?
No, in your life.
Oh, in my life.
Yeah, because you're a late bloomer.
Yeah, that's what my dad says.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for mine, so.
You are.
I never thought of that song that way. The electrified voice sound maybe always made the separation for me. I'll have to listen to that again. I can definitely see like George Martin there. Are you talking about Blue Sky by ELO?
Thanks, Casey Jones. Thanks, Iron Lion.
What are your thoughts on the current situation in the USA? That's a big question.
A birthday margarita. I'm gonna have a birthday mocktail. Fredericks has good mocktails.
Yeah. You could also, of course, get a regular cocktail if you wanted to. Ain't nobody stopping
Well, like, I'm pretty high. I don't really want to mix
you are fairly
alcohol. Yeah.
I gotta change clothes.
And I'd rather be high than drunk.
Fair enough.
I don't want to mix. 40 is the new 38. 40 is the new minus 20. Thank you. I appreciate that. A birthday margarita would be fun, but I don't know, their mocktails are good. How much do you mean? Hello, Johnny Doe. Why not high and drunk? Because sometimes when you mix that, you get the spins. You get the spins when you get high and drunk. And I'm definitely high. It's not even like I'm like halfway high. If I was halfway high, then I can drink. But I'm all the way high. So I don't want to mix the two. It's too much. Oh, they call it high tea? I never knew. Never knew. I just knew that whenever I did that, when I was over, I was like, yeah, like party hard, like drink a lot and get high a lot. I'd like get the spins. High tea, like 4 p.m. snack in England. That's cool. It's 3:42 right now, and I'm stoned. What did you get for your birthday? I got lipstick.
Got like 4 or 5 things.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what else.
When are you going out to dinner?
Yeah, we're going out to dinner. I do have munchies.
You know what's a good poll question to ask?
Yeah, what?
Crab or lobster?
Ooh, that is a good one. I know what my answer is.
Your answer is lobster.
Yeah.
My answer is also lobster.
Oh my god, can we play lobsters together?
I mean, I'm choosing lobster over crab. I mean, it's hypothetical. I don't want lobster that I could eat.
No, I know. But it's a good choice.
It is a good choice. But I want you to enjoy your lobster, and I'm going to get something else because
Of course.
I prefer land animals.
I know. Ooh, Filer says steamed blue crabs with Old Bay. Are you in Kay clubbing for your birthday? No. Kay's in Australia. Maryland, baby, says Filer. My rule is on my birthday, I'm the king, and everyone has to do what I want. I'm the king. It's my birthday. You do this, you do that. I talked to my Aunt Leslie. She called me for my birthday. And I woke up late, which was nice. I needed the sleep. I missed a call from my sister. Ooh, sing that again. Yeah, it's my birthday. I'm 41. Thank you, Filer.
B to the R to the B to the I to the R to the TH, T to the A to the Y.
Oh, thanks, Eric. My mom was like, I can't believe I have a child who's 41. I'm like, yeah. There's times I didn't know I would make it. Because you hear about those like stories of like superstar like stars who like didn't make it past a certain age. I'd be like, oh my god, is that gonna happen to me? I was always happy to pass that age. And it's like I'm now 41. Like 40 is like a big like milestone. And now it's just like 41. I don't know. I do feel like I'm like changing like as a person and like physically too. I have my period also. But thank you for saying happy birthday. I appreciate it. Thanks for the hearts. I'm excited to have lobster. I'm excited to party. I took some Adderall and I took a weed drink. I chugged it. Because I wanted to hit hard. The card that I pulled for today is the Hanged Man. What do you think that means, Eric? What do you guys think that means? The Hangman is number 12. And it's a guy who's hanging upside down from a tree. I pulled the Hangman for today.
It is indeed her birthday. She's having the most important day of the year, the day in which we celebrate her birth.
It's true. So yeah, Eric, what do you think that means? I pulled the Hanged Man for today.
I think it means you can put off all practical concerns because, go shorty, it's your birthday.
We're gonna party like it's your birthday. Gonna sip Bacardi like it's your birthday.
And we don't give a fuck because it's your birthday.
What's the walking song?
It's a birthday song. It's a song for your birthday. It's changed from a walking song to Thursday. No, it's Friday, and that's why the song's for you. January 16th, too. That's your birthday, don't you know? You would like to listen to this at a show when they said, hey, we got a birthday out there in the crowd tonight. Who is it? Rachel. Her name is spelled Rachel. She is the one who's 41 and it's her birthday, so let her do a birthday dance, son.
Thank you. It was so good. Oh my god, I feel so special. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you for appreciating it. Some people would say, "Stop annoying me, Eric."
Oh no, it was so nice. Stop annoying me. Yeah, I can see how some people would say that maybe, but I'm so happy. Like, I feel very special.
Steamed blue crabs with Old Bay. I did one time have soft shell crabs in Maryland, and remember thinking they were good. But would you rather have blue crabs or Alaskan snow crabs?
No. To Alaskan snow crabs.
Well, I'm asking Filer.
Oh.
Because he's from Maryland. I wonder
Yeah, I want to know too.
if he thinks Maryland's crabs are the best.
Thanks, Fly Guy.
Mary.
I believe that pulling the hangman card on one's birthday means that you can have the 2 mocktails or 2 desserts. Giggle. Well, I was gonna maybe ask Eric if we could get chocolate pudding from the grocery store, but I'm not sure. That's kind of like a lot. I'm having lobster for dinner, you know? It was butter. Thank you, Carrot! Oh my god, pizza! Don't even. Oh, pizza sounds so good. You know, I feel like I was highly influenced by Home Alone when I got uh when he got pepperoni pizza. Like, I feel like pepperoni pizza is my favorite because of Home Alone.
Coarse Gold Prospect.
What's that?
I don't know. How do we get on this list?
I don't know.
Where's the Coulterville? If we could bring our little wilderness car that was right around here, it'd be something I might actually want to do, but I don't have to go all over to Coulterville. It's like, hi, Coulterville. You're barely in the county.
Where is Coulterville?
It's like, and instead of going to Merced, you go up that way. Then I think it's off to the right somewhere from over there.
Oh.
Probably before you get to the Bagview Recreation Area, you go right. Yeah. Okay, so I need to.
Eric likes pineapple pizza.
I'm gonna put some coolant in the car, and then I'll
Oh,
come back
wow.
in. What?
I totally forgot that we were taking Kay's car.
Yes, we are. So let me go do that. I'll come back in and get my wallet and stuff, one in the stream, and then we'll go.
Okay. I'm sorry that I had chips and candy before.
Why, you don't think you're that hungry?
No, I'm gonna eat for sure.
If you want to wait till later, we don't have to go right now.
No, I don't want the crowd. Really.
Gotcha. It is a Friday.
Yeah.
Okay, I got my shoes on. Let me do this thing first. I'll come back.
You know, I just like don't want to wait. It's Friday, so I'm sure a lot of people are going to be looking for places to go, and it's one of the places that's open. And I want to take my time, I guess, but the food will be fast, most likely. I'm thinking of this YouTube that I watched of people who like clearly don't have any PR training and were at the Golden Globes and giving the camera the finger. Like, oh my god, talk about cringe. Like, you're the Golden Globes. Like, at least, like, keep your finger for the after party. Like, don't give the finger while you're there. Jeez. Self respect, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. Like, who are you giving the finger to? Like, the haters? I've also forgotten to take the package off the pizza and baked it. Oh my gosh! It was still usable. That's good. Apparently, like you're like really packed in at the Beverly Hills Hotel, like where they hold the Golden Globes. It's like really crazy crowded. You're like packed in like sardines. Doesn't sound fun. It's true, you shouldn't be eating the plastic. Okay, this is microplastics. I was amazed I survived the oven. LOL. I know the feeling, Winston's mom. Austin. Microplastics are flavor bombs. You're just getting used to life in the apocalypse. So your stomach will be like ironclad when, it'll be made of iron when the apocalypse comes because you've been eating microplastics sometimes, so your body's used to it. Yeah, exactly. Like I said, it's okay. We will evolve to eat the plastic. Exactly. I have walking songs stuck in my head. It's a walking song. It's a birthday song. The Evans the is Evans the coral is evolving to live on the plastic found in the oceans. That's impressive. That's really good. I read that the king panda is now no longer endangered. That's a really good thing. That means that they were able to get the enough pandas to mate. And pandas had a reputation for being lazy and not wanting to mate. It's the excuse me. It's the birthdays. If you want to get born, you better sing through a horn. I won't break any bones focus on the motion stuck in my unbirthday head. I don't know what that song is. I won't break any bones. I've not broken any bones as of yet, knock on wood. No one does. Carrie likes to talk about things people don't know. Well, she's 4 Enneagram. Only fly guy, and I know it. That's great. But I like it to you. Thanks. I wonder what's on my playlist. I was into the Gorillas for a while. I listened to all their stuff pretty much. That's what was next on my playlist. Gorillas. Plastic Beach. Thanks, Carrot. A lot of girls is catchy and fun. Yeah, I hook on to the catchy and fun songs usually when I listen to them. Hey, G. It's my birthday. I'm a Capricorn. I added a lot to my playlist when they were added to the Fortnite. Oh, haha. I play as Noodle in the game sometimes. That's cool. When will man, man, love forever free. Yeah, turn forever you. I got that wrong. I got the melody wrong for that. Exactly, though. Scott. Okay, let's see what songs on my playlist after that. Oh, a song that I really like, but not a lot of people like. Um, Cut Copy. They're very lo-fi. Copy is lo-fi for sure. And then after that, wow, early Rolling Stones, Out of Time, which I'm almost positive I got from a TV show, because a lot of songs that I don't know that are Rolling Stones songs that are on my playlist are older songs of Rolling Stones. You had a gorilla face too, Fly Guy? Yeah, I don't know. It makes sense that they're like a millennial group. Well, I think we're going, actually, Winston's mom.
Yep. We are ready to go.
I should be warm in this, right?
This should be good enough. You got something kind of warmish looking underneath it anyway.
Yeah, I have a sweater.
It should be fine.
Or do you think I should wear my brown jacket that's like yours?
I think you should go outside and see how you feel.
Okay.
A minute or two here. Well, Rachel finalizes her clothing choice. I'm going to wear this brown hat. Okay. Carrot likes to talk about things people don't know. Like 16th century French literature. I'm sure you could find a taker somewhere. Oh, you like that too? I love 16th century French literature. Everybody love it. Okay. And in this stream, I'm going to bid you all adieu. Rachel and I love and appreciate you. We'll see you again later. Probably later this evening.